Physical access control is no longer a door hardware problem. It's an identity infrastructure problem. That is the finding from a report we just published with Acre Security. 3 verticals, real stories, analytical intelligence, not just survey data. Today, we go deep on what we found. I'm Leo Dess, and this is Secured. Let's get into it. All right, so a little bit of a different Secured this week. Instead of the news, we're going to spend our time on the report Acre just launched that we wrote in partnership with them on the state of the verticals in 2026. Before we get into the verticals, though, let me explain what the report is and what it's not. This is not a sponsored white paper where someone paid us to say nice things. Acre Security commissioned us to do research. We wrote it independently. The findings, the framing, and the conclusions are ours. The methodology is analytical intelligence. We talk to practitioners, integrators, and subject matter experts. We watch procurement patterns, we track regulatory signals, and we compared what we saw across 3 different buyer communities to find the patterns underneath the surface. What we found is one structural story with 3 different faces. Every vertical is moving from treating physical access control as isolated door hardware to treating it as identity infrastructure that connects physical and digital operations. The speed differs, the budgets differ, the compliance pressures differ, but the destination is the same. We used 3 verticals, as I said, as our examples as we dug deep. Let's dig into those exactly. So let me start with education because it's the most emotionally charged vertical in this whole report. The access control conversation in K through 12 has been dominated for years by one scenario: active shooter. It drives RFPs, it drives bond measure language, it shapes every school board conversation. That is real and it's not going away. It is not just a North American thing either. We're seeing it globally. But here is what we observed in our research. The conversation is shifting. A few years ago, lockdown capability drove the conversation at roughly 70-30 over daily operational safety. That ratio has moved closer to 60-40, and the practitioners we talk to think that shift continues. So why does this matter? Because a system that drives well on a regular Tuesday will also work on the worst day. Lockdown capability that lives inside a system nobody uses correctly the rest of the time is not a security program, it's a drill. The mobile credential story in higher education is a good example of where the operational logic lands. Students already carry phones. The economics are simple. Eliminate the cost of reissuing the physical cards, reduce manual intervention, and tighten access control at the same time. The ROI argument for mobile credentials in higher education is not a technology pitch. It's a budget conversation. But the deeper integration problem is where the real work is. Most institutions are managing access control, video, emergency notification, visitor management, and intercom as completely separate systems. During an incident, staff are switching between multiple screens. A door force alarm fires, and there is no correlated camera feed, no way to quickly confirm whether it is real. That is not a technology failure, but a workflow failure. And the districts building for the next 20 years are building toward a single incident workflow, not a pile of mismatched tools. One more thing on education that I wanted to name directly. There's a silent cost running through every district that never shows up on a security budget line. Pierce Mayfield, one of the practitioners in our research, called it the silent tax. Districts are dedicating entire staff positions to one function: unlocking doors for vendors, issuing temporary badges, and resolving credential issues on a loop. When the person is sick, the system stops. When they leave, institutional knowledge walks right out the door with them. That is the conversation that moves procurement decisions at the district level. Now on to the next vertical, which is healthcare. Healthcare is the most complex vertical in this report, and it is the one moving the fastest right now. The practitioners we talked to were direct about this. The conversations happening in healthcare security today are different from those of even 3 years ago. The people being hired into security leadership roles are more technology forward. The awareness is different. The ramp of change over the past 36 months is unlike any of the other sectors that we've seen before. 2 forces are driving that acceleration. The first is the workplace violence. It is the dominant investment driver in healthcare security right now. It's not a trend. It's a shaping capital allocation, technology selection, and organizational attention in a way no other threat scenario is. And it has crossed over into workforce retention. Employee net promoter scores, specifically whether the staff feels safe on a hospital campus, has become a talent metric. Hospitals that cannot answer that question affirmatively are losing nurses and clinical staff to competitors who can. Security is now a workforce issue, not just a safety issue. The second force is fragmentation from acquisitions. The average large healthcare network is running 6 to 12 or more disparate identity systems. Every acquired facility arrives with its own access control infrastructure. Painting over that fragmentation does not fix it, and that is where the market is moving, toward platform consolidation that absorbs existing infrastructure rather than demanding full replacement. One framework from our research that I want to share here is the arrowhead and wood metaphor. The arrowhead is what people see: cloud management, mobile credentials, AI-enabled configuration, sharp, modern, and exciting, all the new stuff. The wood is what holds everything together: controllers, readers, integrations, the foundational depth that makes a platform indispensable across years of acquisitions. Legacy vendors tend to be all wood. New entrants tend to be all arrowheads. The systems that win platform consolidation projects in healthcare are the ones that have both wood and arrowheads. Enough wood to be trusted and enough arrowheads to be chosen. The procurement question that matters in healthcare is not what the system does, it's what the system can connect to and what we can stop managing separately once it's done. And next is the vertical financial institutions. Financial institutions are further along the platform-first transition than most of the industry realizes. Large national and global banks have been rolling standardized access control deployments for years. One vendor, one platform, global rollout. What some in the industry call the quote-unquote McDonald's model, and it's real. But beneath that surface uniformity, there is significant complexity. Regional and community banks are lagging. Acquisitions have created fragmented architectures at institutions of every size, and the convergence of physical security with cybersecurity and fraud detection is still early. The dominant threat narrative has shifted from external robbery towards insider threat and fraud. A physical security failure that enables a data breach is a media event. The reputational consequences is the primary driver of senior executive attention. But the real budget trigger is not regulatory pressure. It's an audit finding or a merger. Both expose vulnerabilities the normal annual budget cycle would not surface and cannot address quickly enough. One of the contacts at Acre we talked to put the vendor conversation correctly in our research. Stop leading with the cost of implementation. Start leading with the operational cost of managing what the institution already has: the staff hours, the governance gaps, the liability exposure. And then ask what happens if there's an incident before the next renewal cycle. That reframe moves the conversation from procurement to investment. The three questions that surface consistently in enterprise financial institution evaluations are worth naming directly. Number one, can this platform produce a consolidated compliance report across every site in a global estate? Number two, can it onboard an acquired entity without requiring full replacement? And number three, can it support an audit response without requiring manual reconciliation across multiple systems? Vendors that can answer all three credibly earn a place in the evaluation. Vendors that can answer only one or two get positioned as point solutions, regardless of how strong their individual capabilities are. Now to my view. Here's the pattern I want you to take from this episode. There's three verticals, three different budget triggers, three different regulatory pressures, three different buyer communities, and one structural story underneath all of it. The organizations that are winning are the ones that stop treating physical access control as a product category and start treating it as infrastructure, specifically identity infrastructure. That shift has specific implications depending on where you sit. If you are a manufacturer, the arrowhead and wood question is the right one. Where are you? All wood? All arrowhead? Or do you do both? If you're an integrator, the question is whether you are selling products or selling outcomes. Education buyers are buying safer campuses and simpler operations. Healthcare buyers are buying consolidation. Financial institution buyers are buying governance. The technology is the supporting evidence. The outcome is the pitch. If you're a security leader in any of these verticals, the credential lifecycle question is the one most organizations have not solved. Provisioning is imperfect but improving. Revocation, particularly for the contractors and temporary staff, remains a real operational and security vulnerability. The organizations that have solved it have done so through full lifecycle credentialing integration with HR and identity governance systems. Most have not. The gap between what is possible and what is deployed is the widest in the middle. That is where the work is. All right, before I close, 2 things worth your attention this week, the security breakdown. 2 great pieces came in from the community this week. Janet Fenner, Defined Marketing, contributed a piece worth reading if you are, with the industry communities and how you communicate in the venture capital PE world. And Eric Joseph of Minutemen Security contributed as well. The security breakdown is free, it is weekly, and it's built by you and for you in the community. If you're not reading it, you should be. We also launched episode 2 of the XPod series from the security event. Built from the conversations we recorded there, we wove together 11 interviews to tell one story. The easy American framing on European physical security is that regulation slows everything down. GDPR is a tax, NIS2 is a tax, the Cyber Resilient Act is a tax. Compliance gets in the way of innovation, that's what you hear. But the operators building inside those frameworks, they told a different story. Regulation, when done right, is not a burden added at the end. It is a product discipline from the beginning. It forces better architecture, raises the floor, filters out weaker competitors, and builds trust with buyers who cannot afford to get security, privacy, or liability wrong. The conversation in episode 2 moved from regulation as evolution versus transition to proactive versus reactive design to compliance as a design principle instead of a checklist. It got into why compliance can become the gate into high security verticals and how the discipline eventually filters down to the enterprise. Europe is not slow. It is often early to the questions the rest of the market eventually has to answer. Regulation is not a tax, it's a moat. That is the takeaway from episode 2. Go listen. The State of the Verticals benchmark report is available now. Acre Security commissioned it. We wrote it independently, and we stand behind every word. You should take a look at it. If you want to go deeper into any of these 3 verticals, the full report is the starting point. And if you want to talk through any of these, which it means to your business, you know where to find me. If you like this episode, you like what we're doing here, please give it 5 stars. Let people know about it. Hit me up. Let me know how you feel. Subscribe to the Access Control Executive Brief or the FISEC Collective, the online community that we have. If you want to be in the room with those conversations that happen daily, and we'll see you next week. I'm Leo Dess, and this is Secured.